Well, good morning.
Good morning.
And good to be here with you today. I am Reverend G. Delighted that on Memorial Day weekend you chose to spend this time with this community. It's good for us to be together. So today I am going to talk to you about my family of origin. I overshare, therefore I exist. But you're laughing now. But after that, I will share about your family of origin. So it's all coming. All right. How many of you here are aware that in Hungary there have been elections and that Orban had been defeated?
Yes.
All of you. I like that. I like that. I love it that you are staying informed. And I especially love that because I'm sure you know that Project 25 was a paste and copy from Orban's playbook of how he established his so-called illiberal democracy. Orban had been in power for a total of 20 years. First, he was elected, he did a 4-year stint, and then he lost the next election. For 4 years, then he prepared, ran again, like someone else we know, and won, and he stayed in power for 16 years until the 12th of April, when Hungary had elections. And he was defeated. And he wasn't just defeated a little bit. He was humiliated in defeat. He was trampled upon. There was no question that he lost, and that he lost tremendously. And in fact, his support today is the numbers. The number begins with 1. So it's in the teens, his support in that country, in Hungary. That's where my family of origin lives. My parents, my oldest sister, her husband, and their oldest son voted for Orban. My middle sister, her husband, her 2 daughters, as well as my oldest sister, youngest son, voted for the new government. We are split down the middle, and we can't talk about it. There too, because remember, Project 25 is a paste and copy from Orban's playbook. He divided the people so terribly that politics and identity became synonymous. So to question one is to challenge the other. And that's why we can't talk about it. So, parents, they're in their late 80s. I don't know. I don't think they're going to change. Do you? I don't know. My oldest sister, her husband, and the oldest son, they voted for Orban as well. The oldest son, who is 29 or 30, he might be 32. Now, that's how good I am with numbers. He is an attorney, my nephew, and he rose to a significantly pretty high level position in the Orban government. So he is one of those people who completely served, bought into the propaganda, and served that government. Like, he became the machine. But I don't think that that's why my oldest sister voted for Orban. Her his mother. I think maybe that's why my nephew found it easy to become part of the machine. The interesting thing, though, is that my youngest nephew, who grew up in the same family, sat at the same kitchen table, listened to the same conversations, voted for the opposition. Even though it cost him. It cost him because he's part of this family, and he had to undergo a lot of abuse from his mother because of his choice. The reason I'm talking to you about my family is not because my family is special, but because my family is Hungary today. And because my family is replicated in this country among many, many of us. When I call home to talk to my parents, and my dad always wants to talk about politics, I do not know why. I do always tell him, Dad, we have a short time here to talk. So are you sure this is the topic you want to cover? Because there isn't one thing that we see eye to eye on. So if you are going to make a statement, just imagine that I am going to make the opposite. And conversation over, let's talk about something else. Therefore, the loudest part of our conversations is this heavy silence. Loaded silence. And I imagine that you also experience that loaded silence around maybe your family reunions, Thanksgiving table, Christmas, whatever, whenever you come together, maybe Memorial Day weekend when you come together to grill something and talk about everything but that which matters. I want to return to my oldest nephew. He is an attorney. He is intelligent, he is well-trained, and quite capable. Part of the machine. The new government that came to power said those who served the Orban regime, like my nephew, if they have any self-respect, should resign right away. And if they don't, they will be released anyway at the end of this month. It appears to me that my nephew is waiting to be released. I do not know why. I wish he would have that self-respect. I do love him. I've known him all his life. And when I look at his choices, the best way I can describe what I feel is heartbreak. Absolute heartbreak. But here is the thing that makes it even more unbearably, if possible to say, more unbearably complicated. Orban, the man my nephew served faithfully, he became part of his machine. Orban declared publicly as official policy that all gay people are pedophiles. This is not a hyperbole. This is what was said, and this is what was legislated around. Now, it's unbearable because, well, I am gay. He knows it. Furthermore, his younger brother is gay. But guess what else? I am convinced that my oldest nephew is gay. Closeted, quietly, carefully gay. And yet he found it acceptable, workable. It somehow served this regime while this is the official stand. It's mind-boggling. So what do you do with someone who is simultaneously a collaborator with harm and is also the victim of that same harm? And I don't have a clean answer. I have heartbreak. And my question is, where does this person belong in my moral universe? Does he deserve absolution? Does he deserve grace? Or does he deserve my grief?
Ready.
And I suspect he deserves all three. In different measures and on a timeline that I don't necessarily control. Now, the word absolution comes from the word absolvere, to set free, to release from obligation, from guilt, from consequence. And I chose this word very carefully for today's talk. And I chose it carefully because I think we need to be honest about what we are actually asking when we ask whether somebody deserves forgiveness or not. And here is where our UU tradition both help us and then trip us tremendously. Because what is our first principle? We affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Every person. And in parentheses, here I'm going to tell you this, that through this regime, I have come to question that. I have asked myself, are we mistaken about this? Because I see literally nothing redeemable about Trump. I'm just going to come out and say it. Absolutely nothing. I see nothing that would support my belief in the worth and dignity of every person. So I've come to question it. But then the next question is, for me, the next logical question is, who gets to decide who has inherent worth and dignity? Who gets to decide? And every time a human being took it upon themselves to decide the inherent worth and dignity of another person, a group of people, we are talking Holocaust and other horrible killings. It never ended well. So I'm back to believing in the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, because we're just not well equipped to decide otherwise. And that's just parenthesis, okay? So we affirm the inherent dignity. This is not negotiable. This is the bedrock of our UU belief system. And it means that my parents have worth, that my nephew, the attorney, has worth, that Orban and his ministers, who have been dismantling all democratic values and principles and have stolen and have destroyed the country, have worth. Inherent worth is not the same as earned merit. It is not a reward. It cannot be forfeited. It is simply what we believe a human life is. But affirming someone's inherent worth and dignity does not mean that we release them from accountability. It does not mean that we pretend that harm wasn't done here. We do not mean that the path to reconciliation is easy, is short, or that it is even possible. Worth and accountability are not opposites. They can exist together. They are not in competition. So the new Hungarian government says that they will pursue legal accountability for those who broke the law. And I say, good, let the law do its work. Accountability is not the enemy of healing. In fact, I believe it is a prerequisite of it. Accountability. But legal accountability and personal reconciliation are two different things. The law can hold Orban and hopefully Trump and his cronies in the future sometime responsible, but it cannot repair that heavy loaded silence that exists in my family, in yours, around the holiday table, because that is a human work. It's slow, it's uncertain, painful human work. And it may not even happen in our lifetime. And I am, beginning to make my peace with that. I don't know that it will, and I don't know that it won't. So now, I'm crossing the ocean. Now we're going to talk about stuff that hits closer to our home. And I have to tell you, I live in the schizophrenic world right now, because I am following the situation so closely in Hungary. And over there, when I listen to the news there, I feel like, oh my God, I can breathe again. And it's like this weight has lifted. And then I'm back here, and I want to feel that freedom and that liberation here as well. And here it's nothing but yoke. Heavy, weighed down yoke. And I still don't see the end of it, other than the hope of it. There's got to be the hope of it. But here we have our own version of my family. We have our own years of cultivated division, our own media ecosystem built to maximize outrage and minimize understanding. Our own demagogues who discovered that fear is a lot more profitable than hope. Our own official declarations that certain people, immigrants, trans people, anyone who does not fit the preferred image of the nation, are threats rather than neighbors. And here we are living heavily into this. In Hungary, they are looking at accountability now. Here, we're still in the thick of it. So I am not here to tell you this morning that reconciliation is simple. I am not here to tell you that please go ahead, just call your MAGA uncle and aunt or parents and just give them absolution over the phone. I am not here to tell you that even every relationship is repairable. I don't know. I'm not sure that they are. I'm not sure that every bridge can or that should be rebuilt. I'm also not here to tell you that the work of healing is more important than the work of resistance. But I am here to tell you one thing. And that is that there is a difference between person and a position. Person and a position they take. And obviously, I will develop this. There's a difference between the human being and the ideology that they have been fed. There's a difference between my parents, who have been shaped by a community, a particular history, a particular fear, and 16 years of relentless propaganda, and the architects of the propaganda, who knew exactly what they were doing. And this distinction matters. It doesn't excuse anything, but it matters. Because when we collapse this distinction, we begin to mirror the very logic we oppose. The logic that says that some people are enemies. That some people are beyond the circle of concern, that some people do not deserve the full weight of our moral attention. But I want to be careful here as well, because not everyone in this story occupies the same moral position, in my opinion. And remember, don't believe anything I say. I am telling you here what I think. I have labored over this talk for a very long time. The reason, normally I don't read my talks, the reason I am reading most of this is because I want to be extremely disciplined about this talk. And this is my 9th version of this talk. I have given it a lot of thought, but I don't want you to believe it. I want you to think about it and then decide for yourself. And look at it from every angle. If it's true for you, take it. If it isn't, discard it. Also, let me know, enlighten me. So, for the architects, the Orbans, the Trumps, for anyone who looked at human fear and chose deliberately to weaponize it, grace is not the primary posture I am looking at. Accountability is. The courts, the historical record, the clear-eyed naming of what was done and who did it and what it cost. All of it. Because I find nothing redemptive in a leader who spends decades manufacturing hatred. That is not a person swept up in something, that is the engine. And that engine deserves to be stopped, examined, and held to account. Now, grace is for people who still have room to become something different. Now, whether the architects of this moment have room or ever had room to become something different, I'm going to leave that up to somebody who has a higher pay scale than I do to decide, okay? I don't know. But what I know is that I'm not going to pretend that the foot soldier and the general stand in the same place before the question of absolution. For some, the shaping was accidental and gradual. Hence the title, We Forgot to Change the Channel. In Hungary, they tuned into a channel and they forgot that they had a remote control, and we did the same thing here. We have the equivalent of a channel here that rhymes with Max, and those people just forgot they had a remote control, and after a while, they couldn't imagine any other version of reality than the one that was fed to them by that particular channel. But here, I also have to be very honest with you again, because I believe that you deserve honesty more than comfort. Forgetting to change the channel explains a first vote. Maybe a second, maybe, but a third? A third vote? After an insurrection? After 60 plus failed court challenges to a legitimate election? After 34 felony convictions? After a federal judge's finding of rape? At some point, the channel is no longer an explanation. At some point, a person has seen enough and has chosen anyway. And that choice, eyes open, facts available, consequences visible, that is not bamboozlement. That is moral agency fully engaged. So what do we do with that person? And I think we stop calling it grace and start calling it grief. A different kind of grief. Not for someone lost to a machine, but for someone who found the machine, recognized it for what it is, and chose to feed it anyway. I know some people like that. I'm sure you do too. And I am so lucky, because I am, of course, international. I have that on that continent, in Hungary, and then I get to relive it and rehave it here with friends. And not because I've done anything wrong, but because I refuse to do the wrong thing. So these people, the third-time voters, their worth remains. It has to. That's the first principle, and I won't abandon it, not even here. But worth is not absolution. And understanding is not the same as excuse. Are you still with me? Yes. Okay. So what I am asking of us, and I'm asking of myself as well, you know, the talks that I give, if you are interested, is because I am interested. If they are relevant to you, the only reason they are because they're relevant to me. I'm living in the soup as well, struggling with it, working through it. So I'm asking of myself as well. Is grace for the ones who were swept up? And there's many of those. For my parents, for your uncle and aunt, for the ordinary frightened people of the world who believed what they were told, because the telling was everywhere, and it was so good. They're good. They're good at messaging. I don't know if you are listening to, what's his name, that guy, gosh, I can't stand him. They fired him from Fox, and now he has his podcast, and that's it. Yeah. And he was so good at selling Trump, and now he's so good at talking against him. Like, who are you, man? Like, whatever you do is just like doing it the same way, but where's your substance really? So who deserves absolution? And I've been wrestling with this. And I will tell you where I landed. Provisionally, humbly, and knowing that I could be wrong. And I am one of those people who is willing to change their minds in the light of new information. In fact, people who are not willing to change their minds in light of new information frighten me. Absolution is not something we grant. It must be earned through acknowledgement, through change, through the slow work of repair. And most importantly, it can only be given by those who were harmed. Forgiveness is different. It is not primarily for the person who wronged you, it is for you. It is for me. It is the decision to stop letting their actions determine the shape of our inner world. We can forgive someone with whom we will never speak again, someone who has never apologized. Forgiveness is an act of self-liberation. Grace is something else entirely. Grace is the willingness to hold open the possibility of a person's transformation even when yet there's no evidence of that. It does not require proximity. You can extend grace from a distance, and you can vote against everything that they believe in. Grace is not naive. It is not weak. In fact, I argue that it is the hardest spiritual practice there is. And I tell you why. And this is important. It resists the urge of this very human satisfaction of declaring someone irredeemable. And that satisfaction is so seductive when we are in pain. I am working on grace for my parents, for my nephew, my dear nephew, for my older sister, for the friends here. I am working on grace. It's slow work. It doesn't always feel holy, but I suspect it might just be. In Hungarian, we have a word. It sounds like this, kitartás. It means dogged refusal. Stubborn, dogged refusal. It is not optimism. Hungarians, by very nature, we are not an optimistic people. But we have kitartás, I tell you. We needed it throughout history. We needed it when the Ottomans occupied us, then the Habsburgs, then Stalin, and since then, oh, so many times. And now we are asked to endure something different, and in many ways harder, because we may have never been this divided before. And I think that this is what this moment asks of us here too. Kitartás in this country, in this community. It's not certainty, it's not premature harmony, it's not the bypassing of grief and anger and legitimate moral outrage. Just kitartás, this dogged perseverance, this refusal to be finished, the decision to keep asking the hard questions even when the answers don't come, or they come and we don't like them. The willingness to hold at the same time both a clear-eyed account of what has been done and the cracked open possibility that the people who did it, not all of them, not without consequence, not on a timeline of our choosing, might yet become something different. We are UUs. We are people who believe that the arc of the universe bends toward justice. Not automatically, not inevitably, but when we choose to bend it. We are a people who believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, not because it is easy, not because everybody has earned it, but because it is the only anthropology that makes a democratic society possible. And we are a people, some of us anyway, who have been hurt, who are exhausted, who are furious. And that fury is not a spiritual problem to be solved. It is data. It is the moral immune system doing its job. But fury, if it becomes the whole of us, makes us rigid. And rigidity is its own kind of defeat. So here is my gentle direction, offered not as a prescription, but as an invitation. Know the difference between boundary and a wall. A boundary protects something essential. A wall declares someone beyond your moral universe permanently. Boundaries are healthy. Walls built high enough end up becoming our own prisons. Know the difference between accountability and punishment. Accountability says what was done must be named, faced, and addressed. Punishment says you must suffer. I suffered, you must suffer. The first is justice, and the second is often just pain wearing the clothes of justice. And know the difference between a person and a position. Not to excuse the position, not to soft pedal the harm, but to remember that people are not fixed. That people have surprised us before. That the man who worked for an authoritarian government is also someone else's son, someone's brother, someone formed by forces he did not fully choose. And that he is not the last word on himself. Neither are you, and neither am I. I do not know what happens next in my family. I don't know if the silence will ever break down, or when, or how, no idea. These questions are not hypotheticals for me. These are the texture of my actual everyday life. I carry them in my chest, somewhere behind the sternum, where the grief and the love have gotten so tangled that I can't always tell them apart. What I do know is this: the choice to remain open, not naive, not without discernment, not without boundaries, but remain open, is a choice for life over calcification, for movement over monument, for the long, uncertain, irreplaceable work of being human together. That work does not guarantee peace. It just keeps the possibility alive. And right now, that possibility, that cracked, open, stubborn, Hungarian-hearted, Unitarian-souled possibility, is about the most sacred thing I know. And so it is. Thank you.